In the book Lost in Transition, Christian Smith acknowledges the dark side of emerging adults' lives. And in chapters 3 and 4, there are three quotes on intoxication and on sexual liberation that I'm going to talk about. The first is, in this underworld that hides the darker side of sexual liberation and alcohol use, few confess the reality of their own confusion and pain. To do so would almost seem to admit personal failure at a game that nearly everyone else appears, especially in television shows and movies, to be playing with success. I would agree with parts and disagree with parts of this quote because, for example, I agree that in television shows and movies, sexual liberation as well as intoxication is showed to have no repercussions. But growing up, I definitely was taught that there are repercussions. I saw people who were my own age who had drinking problems. I saw girls my age getting pregnant. I saw boys treating girls not with the respect that they deserve. And so I definitely was open with my friends and my parents about my confusion and pain regarding sexual liberation and alcohol use. And so I think in my life, I knew that it didn't define success if you were sexually active or if you were using alcohol. But that's my personal experience. I definitely think that people in America have had experiences where they are not able to share those thoughts. The second quote is, Smith believes that it would be folly to deny that the sexual revolution has helped to generate a larger climate of norms, assumptions, expectations, interests, and practices that create conditions that often increase the probability of emerging adults suffering those negative experiences and problems. I don't agree because I don't think that it's cause and effect in one specific way. I think that the norms and assumptions and expectations of emerging adults these days are, yes, it's partially our fault. We have changed, and so then everything else, the norms and practices, change with us. But I also think that there is a select few that have had more say, especially in mass media, that has thus affected emerging adults. And we are trying to find who we are in this day and age. And so if we're constantly bombarded with movies or pictures that tell us that we should be doing something, and if we haven't been brought up with strong morals, then yes, we're going to be easily malleable and easily persuaded to make certain decisions. And I don't think that everyone in America should be grouped because I don't think that it's necessarily the sexual revolution that has generated the larger climate, but I think it might be almost back and forth. They both affect each other, but it's definitely not a one-way street. And then my third quote would be, Smith believes that we are all addicts now, yet in today's society, some addicts are simply more common and acceptable than others. And I completely agree with this because because addiction to alcohol is looked down upon, but addiction to gambling, in my opinion, isn't as looked down upon. But I definitely think that reoccurrent intoxication is an addiction, and not necessarily an addiction to the substance, but an addiction to that lifestyle. So I don't necessarily always agree with what the book says, but I think the authors of this book are definitely on the right track. And with more open-mindedness in a way, I think that their book would grab a lot more people's attention who are emerging adults. Thank you.